And North Korea's foreign minister also weighed in on President Trump's speech yesterday, saying Mr. Trump sounded like a barking dog. We'll likely hear more from him about that during his speech at the UN tomorrow. Heather and Rob?
Yeah, he always has an interesting response.
He certainly does. All right, Garrett, thanks so much. And the left continuing to hammer President Trump for his hard stance and that speech when he was talking about a nuclear North Korea.
But Washington Times columnist Charles Hurt, he says that liberals should ask why former President Obama let it get this far to begin with.
I just have a hard time understanding why it is that that advising North Korea, advising Rocket Man, that if you do attack one of our neighbors or attack the United States, you will be annihilated. I think that that very clear message is something that's very, very important. Listening to Democrats talk about all of these things that Trump didn't address or didn't address properly or didn't respect, all of these problems were given to us by Barack Obama. And whether it's Russian run amok, whether it's nuclear North Korea or ISIS on the march or the mayhem in Syria and Iran, all of this was bequeathed to us by his predecessor. And so the idea of trying something different is actually, I think, probably a pretty smart idea.
And now to this Fox News alert. I can't quit following this story. Rescuers in Mexico City, they're working around the clock to save a 12-year-old little girl who was trapped underneath that school that was destroyed by the devastating earthquake.
Yeah, it's really an epicenter of this story. Crews unable to pull her out at this point, but they have been able to get her water and oxygen. 11 other children already have been rescued from the rubble of this school.
Aquí, sácala, ven mi amor, por ahí. No me vais a raspar. Ahora por allá, bebé. Sácala por allá.
It's just incredible. The 7.1 quake, leaving at least 21 little kids and 4 adults at that school dead.
Wow. But more than 240 people total have died across the city. But some officials say that that number could reach 1,000. I hope they get her. Yeah, and some others, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And another major disaster, Puerto Rico, waking up in total darkness this morning after taking a direct hit from Hurricane Maria. The entire island now without power, and authorities are warning it may not be returned or turned back on to everybody. It could take months to get that to happen. And on top of that, more than 2 feet of rain falling in parts of the country, turning streets into raging rivers. Look at that. Officials saying, quote, the island is destroyed.
Well, President Trump tweeting this: we are with you and the people of Puerto Rico. Stay safe. Can you imagine 3.5 million people in the dark, no power?
I cannot imagine that. Yeah. It could take a long time to get that power back on, and what a storm and what a season it's been so far, Janice.
Yeah. Are we done with it yet?
You know, Maria, are we talking about Maria or the season?
The season.
We're certainly not done with the season.
No, the season
early.
lasts until November 30th, unfortunately, and we could have more storms on the way. But for now, we are watching Maria. I mean, incredible wind gusts in excess of 130 miles per hour across not only Puerto Rico, but the U.S. Virgin Islands. Just an incredible storm. Still packing winds of 115 miles per hour. It went over mountainous terrain of Puerto Rico. It disrupted the storm a little bit, weakened it, but it still has warm water ahead of it. So we think that it has the potential to strengthen a little bit, but we are hoping it goes east of the Turks and Caicos, east of the Bahamas, and east of the U.S. Fingers are crossed. Here's the latest advisory. As you can see, hoping everything is okay in the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. And it looks like, fingers are crossed, we're still going to have to monitor this, but it looks like this will miss the U.S. next week. So we will continue to follow it and, of course, bring you the very latest from Puerto Rico as well. Back to you, Rob,
Puerto Rico
Heather.
and the U.S. Virgin Islands, they need a break.
They do.
Certainly do. All
Thank you.
Janice, thanks so much. President Trump throwing his full support behind the last-ditch effort to repeal and replace Obamacare, but he is calling out Republican holdout Senator Rand Paul.
Now, the president tweeting, Rand Paul is a friend of mine, but he is such a negative force when it comes to fixing health care. Graham Cassidy bill is great, ends Ocare. The new bill aims to shift more power and funding away from Washington and back to the states.
And President Obama now breaking his silence about the GOP's attempt to undo his signature health care law.
When I see people trying to undo that hard-won progress for the 50th or 60th time, it is aggravating. It's certainly frustrating to have to mobilize every couple of months to keep our leaders from inflicting real human suffering on our constituents.
Well, the Senate is set to vote on the new bill next week because they're up against the deadline. So what are the chances that it will pass? And exactly what is in the new bill?
Yeah, that's the big question. Here to break it down for us, Brian Brenberg, chair of the program in business and finance at the King's College in Manhattan. Brian, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah, and that's the big question is what exactly changes about this? One analyst that I heard that I really think I agreed with said, at the end of the day, we're still going to have socialized health care. At the end of the day, Obamacare still in a lot of ways wins the war. We're just trying to figure out how to implement it in a way that seems a little bit more conservative. Does that sound?
Sort of. The money stays the same. There's still money coming from the federal government.
Well, it keeps 90% of it.
That's right. The big difference is the decision about how to spend the money is going to happen at the state level, not the federal level. And that could create some very big differences depending on what state you're talking about. For instance, if you're talking about a red state like Texas, you could see some very big reforms, dropping some of the coverage mandates that were included under Obamacare, changing Medicaid. You could see it moving in a more market-oriented direction. In a place like New York or California, you could see it go very opposite here, actually more toward a single-payer system. So you could get a lot of diversity in the United States around health care if this bill passes.
Rand Paul is the one Republican who has come out and said that no, he will not vote for this at this point. They need 50 to come on board if they decide to bring this up next week. And his argument is that, well, we're just saying it does not appeal Obamacare. But when he was voting for the, skinny Obamacare bill, he did vote for that. So the difference being that this takes, block money and gives it to the different states, but some get different amounts than others.
Yeah, it's not quite clear in principle why Rand Paul is opposing this bill versus the one that he voted for. I think he has some explaining to do there. He's right that this isn't a repeal of Obamacare. It's just a repackaging and a repurposing, moving decision rights and money down to the states. That's a big deal. That's federalism, but it's not a complete repeal of Obamacare. If that's his standard, he's right, but you see some inconsistency in
this bill actually existed before.
It did.
So they've discussed this before.
It's been around for the better part of a year. It took a back seat when we had the other repeal plan on the table. Now that that's gone, this is back again, but at the very last minute, of course.
This is the backup plan. Let's go to a couple of screens here to show you. Here's just a list of the governors that are against this bill. Of course, right there at the top, if we can pull that up, is a big critic of President Obama, Republican, or President Trump. But John Kasich right there at the top of the list. A couple other swing state governors as well. There are a number of people against this bill, but a number of people that aren't on this bill as well. I guess at the end of the day, the question is, does this get through?
Well, look, it's going to, when you're talking about the decision of one or two senators, you never know. It can change in a heartbeat. I think what you have going on for the states, you look at some of those governors who oppose this.
Who did or did not expand Medicare to begin with, and that depends how much money they get this time.
Money gets shifted here, probably from blue states to red states. But look, this is a big deal. Governors have 2 years to figure out how to do health care in their states. That's a very heavy lift. The federal government, Congress, is basically saying, here, states, you solve this problem because we can't seem to do it.
Just quickly, though, previous issues that are
pre-existing
covered.
Conditions.
Pre-existing conditions.
The president
That's a big
saying
issue.
that will be on the bill.
It is. Yeah, look, I don't think it's quite as bad as critics are saying. The bill still requires states to have affordable options in place for people with pre-existing conditions, but there's more flexibility there. So things are going to change. Again, we talk about
who
red
determines
states.
That?
It's going to be the governors. It's going to be the state legislatures and the governors that are going to try to make an appeal if they want to bend some of the pre-existing coverage conditions. So it's on a state-by-state basis. Depending on where you live, things could change a lot or a little.
We could talk about this for another 20 minutes. If we could. There's so much to talk about. There's a lot to read about here.
People, so they need to know.
It certainly does. Brian, thank you so much.
Good to be here.
Well, the time now is about 10 minutes after the top of the hour. Finally, a victory for our veterans. Finally, how the Trump administration just took aim at the VA to help our heroes get closer to the health care that they certainly deserve.
And the Apple Watch that you just coughed up $400 for might be bad.
What?
The crucial defect Apple just admitted to. We'll talk about that.
Let's go to another stunning admission. This is from Apple about its brand new $400 watch. It might not work.
Yeah, Tracy Carrasco from our sister network Fox Business here to explain this one. Hey, Tracy.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, this Apple Watch isn't even on the shelf, and there's already a problem. Now, this is the $399 always connected watch, and apparently there's a Wi-Fi glitch that causes it to lose all connectivity. So Apple says it happens when users visit open Wi-Fi Wi-Fi network that they may have gone to before, so like at a hotel or a coffee shop. Now, they say they're working on a software update to fix the problem, but they better hurry because this thing is supposed to hit shelves tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, what do we got coming up next? Some holiday hiring already for Walmart, or maybe not?
Actually, no. This is something that they did last year. They found out it worked so well. They're going to do it again. Now, they're not hiring any holiday workers. Instead, they're giving their current employees more hours. Now, the reason for this, two things. You know, it may be to make jobs more attractive to kind of stop the turnover. And then the other thing, they may be finding a hard time filling those positions. According to the latest job reports, there's actually about 600,000 open retail positions right now.
Okay, so maybe they can fill some of those.
Exactly.
And finally, a wine advent calendar, speaking of the holidays.
You know, this is a great idea. So forget those boring advent calendars with the chocolates. But Aldi, the grocery store, they're going to be doing a wine advent calendar. So the calendar has 24 mini bottles of wine. So white, red, rosé, bubblies. And that equals about 6 bottles of alcohol in this advent calendar. Now, sounds like a good time, but the only bad thing is this is available in the UK.
Okay.
I know.
And it's not a full bottle a day. It's like a mini bottle a day. Okay.
Like a little airplane bottle.
Exactly.
Oh, you got to ship it from the UK. No big deal.
Yeah.
All right, Tracy, thanks so much.
Guys.
19 minutes after the hour, a self-admitted Antifa leader and criminal justice professor is under fire for calling to kill cops. This keeps happening, and now he's trying to explain himself.
Am I supposed to tell my students, yes, you should become a police officer so that you can have a gun at all times and possibly kill someone? I don't think that that's a good thing.
No.
School won't fire him, so now a number of Americans are stepping in. We'll talk about that.
And how is this for justice? The robber who was taken down by a Starbucks employee wants to sue. The robber wants to sue, or you're going to not believe this one.
Okay, welcome back. Iran raising the stakes to nuclear levels as the Obama-era nuclear deal hangs in the balance.
And North Korea is still looming as the president meets with the leaders of Japan and South Korea today. Garrett Tinney joins us now. He is live in D.C. with the latest developments. Good morning, Garrett.
Well, Heather and Rob, what's interesting here is this was by no means a scheduled announcement. After a meeting with the King of Jordan, President Trump told reporters he has made his decision on the Iran nuclear deal, but he wouldn't say just what that decision is. Shortly after that announcement, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson met with the parties of the nuclear deal, which he said is not accomplishing what it was supposed to do, which is stopping Iran from moving towards nuclear weapons.
Regrettably, since the agreement was confirmed, we have seen anything but a more peaceful, stable region. And this is the real issue. And that's why we talk about Iran defaulting on these expectations, because those expectations clearly have not been met.
And the Trump administration must certify that Iran is in compliance with the nuclear deal every 90 days. The next deadline is just a few weeks away on October 15th. The more pressing nuclear threat, though, is North Korea. And the leaders of South Korea and Japan are praising President Trump's tough talk towards the North's Kim Jong-un this week. Japan's prime minister now says the time for talk is over, though, and that more pressure is needed. Back here at home, Defense Secretary James Mattis says the U.S. must be prepared to respond if diplomacy fails.
We continue to press on the diplomatic level, and that includes economic sanctions, of course. But at this time, we must also recognize the somber reality that military options must be available in order to protect our allies and ourselves.
And North Korea will likely be a major focus at the UN again today when President Trump meets with the leaders of Japan and South Korea. Heather and Rob?
Yeah, certainly will.
All right, Garrett, thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, the state of California is suing the Trump administration, calling the proposed border wall unconstitutional. But Attorney General Jeff Sessions says it is a matter of government responsibility.
We respect immigration policy. We understand it's a federal matter. But if it happens in our backyard, we demand that it be carried out in the right way following the rule of law.
Why in the world would they want to object to the law being followed? People who've come into the United States illegally and then commit additional crimes, why they shouldn't be deported is beyond me.
Well, the lawsuit California is levying aims to stop design, planning, and construction of the wall. It argues the government is overstepping its authority by waiving environmental reviews as well as other laws.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi trying to make nice with Dreamers after this happened. She was shouted down at a news conference.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, now she's praising their parents for sneaking them into the U.S.
Their families did a great thing for our country, bring these kids here who are working, who are in the military, who are in school, who are a brilliant part of our future.
Well, the president is putting pressure, of course, on Congress to come up with a solution to the Dreamer program. And in the meantime, Tucker Carlson is now calling out Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party as a whole. He says that the left is so power hungry that they're publicly pandering to whomever is willing to keep them in office.
We're the adults in the Democratic Party. It used to be they were in leadership, but not anymore. Nancy Pelosi is the most powerful Democrat in the House of Representatives. She was once Speaker, you'll remember. She may soon be again. Pelosi isn't just tolerant of illegal immigration. She is now explicitly encouraging it. Breaking our laws is now a great thing, says one of our country's chief lawmakers. Their motive? It's always the same. Political power. They lost it. They want it back, even if it means hurting the people they are sworn to protect. Democrats alienated the middle of the country during the Obama years, but they have no plans to convince those voters to return. Instead, they plan to replace them with new and more reliable voters from abroad. That's why they're far more upset about DACA than they are about the opioid crisis. What's amazing is that they're now saying it out loud.
All right, to a Fox News alert now. 1,000 people now feared dead following that massive earthquake in Mexico. 245 victims confirmed killed in that 7.1 magnitude quake. Rescuers now in a race against time to find survivors trapped in so much rubble in Mexico City and the surrounding areas. Nearly a dozen people found dead in a church, the victims attending a baptism for a little girl when that quake hit. But we are seeing some stories of hope and survival. This dog found under a crumbled building and pulled to safety. And we also are hearing about kids found in that school as well. So
Still
some
searching
hope.
for them. Yeah. And now let's go to Puerto Rico for you, though. They're waking up in total darkness this morning after taking a direct hit from Hurricane Maria. The entire Still searching for them. Yeah. And now let's go to Puerto Rico for you, though. They're waking up in total darkness this morning after taking a direct hit from Hurricane Maria. The entire island, if you can imagine, now without power. And authorities are warning that it may not be turned back on for months. On top of that, 2 feet of rain falling on parts of the island, turning streets, look at that, into a raging river. Officials saying, quote, the island is destroyed. President Trump tweeting to the governor, we are with you and the people of Puerto Rico. Stay safe. 3.5 million people.
Another massive hurricane.
Yeah.
All right, 36 minutes after the hour, a college professor offering extra credit to students who can calculate their white privilege. We told you about this yesterday. Why our next guest says pushing this agenda on a college campus is setting students up to fail in life.
What does the First Amendment protect you? What is it entitled to? The right to bear arms. That's the Second Amendment.
And do you know your First Amendment rights? We went out to put Americans to the test.
And talk about some irony. The internet going after the First Lady for her outfit, bullying her online during a speech that she had to stop cyberbullying. Carly Shimkus here with reaction from those coming to the First Lady's defense.
First Lady Melania Trump making a major statement on cyberbullying, and instead of listening to what she said, the internet was focused on what she was wearing.
All right, Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 has what I'm not surprised by, I guess. There's a lot of that going
this
on
is going to be one of the most ironic things you'll hear all